Well, hello everyone. It is Friday, November the 25th, 2022. I am Dale Delbridge, Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and this is your weekly status chat. It does appear that we are just about to run out of NCAA football. This is the last week of the series, and this is normally the one where we have the in-state rivalry matchups, such as the Tennessee Volunteers versus Vanderbilt. That should be an interesting game. Vanderbilt is on a 2-game winning streak, and UT is not. We also have down in Alabama the Alabama-Auburn game, and that should be always a treat for us. And then, of course, we have the other rivalries in various other states. So we'll have that to look forward Friday and actually Saturday as well. So we have a little bonus football that we catch if you want to go find it. I'm not going to bring those to you. That's up to you. Now, we did have some reasonably hinted at maybe possibilities of kind of sort of might be some positivity in our mortgage rates, and that'll be the subject of our middle segment. If you like this content, please go to calldale2sell.com, find the tab that says on YouTube, click it, and it'll open up a page of QR codes. There you can use a smartphone to scan and get to the YouTube page, or you can just mouse over and click it on a PC. There you'll be able to subscribe to this little button over here and click the notification bell so that YouTube will notify you when each Friday's blog has been uploaded. Thank you. So the question remains, are we still on track for 7.5% to maybe 8% 30-year mortgage rates by the end of the year? And we've gotten some kind of indication, some hints. Remember that when Chairman Powell speaks, it's a lot like Fauci was. We just speak and we tremble at the words that he says to us. So I have a couple of tabs here open and we'll look at and see what things are going on this particular week and why we might have an indication that we're doing some good. We'll have to see. So let's take a look at this. Now, this particular article is from CNBC Economy. Even with slower inflation, consumer sentiment weakened sharply in November, surveys said. So this would kind of give us indication that, well, we, the consuming public, not quite really buying it because we feel it. And you can tell us whatever you want to kind of lead us to a direction that you would like us to go. The election's over. Now it's time to show that everything is getting back to hunky and dory. But is that really true? All right, this is by Mr. Jeff Cox, published Friday, November 11th. It's a few days old. We're going to look at it, and it says the University of Michigan survey of consumers posts a 54.7 reading for November, down 8.7% from the previous month's reading and well below the estimate. The survey noted a particular slide in views on spending for durable goods. Yes, those big ticket items. Big ticket items such as TVs, kitchen appliances, and motor vehicles. The index for that group fell 21%. And I think that's probably about all we need to look at. I'll post this link, as always, from a retail source. I want to make sure I give the authors and the publishers credit for it. Index of Consumer Expectation, which looks at where respondents see things heading in the next 6 months, tumbled. So I would say this is probably the people who are doing the buying in the economy. That's them saying we're not really buying, that things are getting better soon. So let's take a look at this. This is what we're going to look at where we might have some positivity. This is again from CNBC, staying with the same publisher. We're looking at Federal Reserve. Again, Mr. Jeff Cox. This was just 2 days ago at November the 23rd after the Fed committee met. And it says Fed officials see smaller rate hikes coming soon. Minutes show. So when they look at the minutes of the public meeting, they say, well, we think we might be able to back off these 0.75% spike in interest in the prime. Basically, it's based off of the target rates, which the Fed sets target rates. And of course, mortgage rates are keyed into that. And we've talked about that. A mortgage-backed security is a higher risk loan than the Treasury bills, and if the Treasury bills keep going up, that's going to have eventually some substantial impact on the mortgage markets, and we know that. So that's not a big leap. So the key points are the Federal Reserve officials expect to switch to smaller interest rate increases soon. What is soon? Is soon by middle of next year? Is it soon by the end of this year? So I don't know. Some officials expressed concern over the impact rate increases could have on the financial stability and the economy. Well, no joke, Sherlock. The markets have largely expected the Fed to dial down the intensity of its policy tightening, and the minutes help confirm that. So we're taking that, we got a little bit of positive, some good news here. The Fed, which sets that target rate, is going to dial it back. So maybe we'll get a 0.5 point, but will a 0.5 point come December, or will it happen in the next or subsequent jumps. We have to see. We just saw, according to CNBC, that the consumers don't believe it. Now let's take a look at this third. This one is by Alicia Wallace, CNN Business, updated 11:38 Eastern Time, November 15th, about 10 days ago. And it says that Minneapolis, the key measure of inflation, which is the wholesale price, that'd be the PPI, not the CPI. And remember, the Fed uses the PCE, rose by 8% in October year before, according to the latest report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. While still high, it was the smallest increase since July, and that was we're starting to slow down a little bit. But we also had, the strategic reserve, the military reserves being pledged down to keep the energy component down. But we know that we're entering into winter and we have food prices and holiday spending, that sort of thing. So we get down to here and it talks about the year over PPI, that's the wholesale price includes, which excludes food and energy. What do we talk about when we talk about when they use the core? Whenever they report the core, it's because energy and food are not going the direction they want it to, and they want to give you the rosiest position they can. The components whose pricing is more prone to market volatility measured 6.7%, down from September. This would be October. We're still talking about October. Revised annual of 7.1. Now notice how they measured it at 6.7 to give you that good news, and it snuck the increase in afterwards. That's very, very typical of how these things work. The month-over-month core PPI prices were flat, the lowest monthly reading since November of 2020. All right, so we keep going through in there, and they're trying to pick out some reason to be positive. But now we talk about last week's consumer price index. Here we back to the CPI. Remember, the Fed uses the CPE, not the CPI. It said it slowed to 7.7% from 8.2% year over year for consumer goods. So this is what they're saying. The tightening of the money supply is hurting the spending enough that we're beginning to see some of the inflation come down. And that may be good for us. And it says here, these aren't the type of things that tell the Fed to stop tightening rate, he says. They may tell you that you don't need 75 basis points. So whether or not the Fed will actually do that, and this is Mr. Ricciuto, said talk about October. So we don't know if we're going to get it or not. And we have, of course, Chairman Powell saying, well, we might see smaller hikes. So will we? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. We won't know till we get there. But it may say that we're beginning to clamp off the economy sufficiently high that come the winter months that we might actually see some lower steps in our mortgage rates. Will we hit 7.5? Don't know. Anyway, that's it for today's show. It's a whole lot of speculation, but we might see something to be a little bit more optimistic about, although the consumers don't believe that it's going to get better in the near future. And remember, when you print that much money, it's going to take a long time, maybe in a cycle of years, to get over that. And remember also that the Fed wants to see about, 2% inflation? And we're still around 7.7 or 8%, somewhere in that neighborhood. Even if we called it 6%, that's still 4 more percent. We got to get the drop down. So don't expect the long-term rates to get better. They just may slow down how fastly they are increasing. So let's get to the rest of the show. Hello, I'm Dale Delbert of Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. If you are currently unrepresented and would like to know how to compare up to 3 properties side by side and room by room, then go over to my new YouTube channel. Call Dale to sell. That's 1 L and Dale, no spaces. Watch the demo on Real Scout and then call me and we'll set up your exclusive ad-free account today. And now for our numbers. Last week, 11/17/2022, we had 19,363 opportunities. That was up over the previous period. 3415 were the under contract still showing. That was down over the previous period. And the integer ratio held tight at 18%, which it has been for 3 weeks now. Now this week, 11/25/22, we had 19,151 in the opportunities. That fell a little bit over the previous week. We had 3368 in the under contracts still showing. Those two fell just a little bit. And the integer ratio between them stayed the same at 18%. So now we've had 4 straight weeks at 18% between those two. It looks like we're steadying out a little bit. Maybe the volume ticks up or down just a little bit, but the ratio is staying the same. So there's not a lot going on there. So I hope this has been a good show for you. Remember, markets tend to be emotional. And when we can speak a little word out over something and use a word like soon, it is absolutely nondescript and non-binding, and who knows what that means. Now, I would keep an eye on this week's Black Friday spending. That's going to be something that I'm going to use to monitor consumer sentiment, because a lot of people are thinking, well, maybe maybe the sales will help. But we know that Target and other places are down. Going to try to get rid of some of the older merchandise, so it may be beneficial. It may actually be a little bit misleading if we see the sales spike, but at lower prices. And we just have to see what's going on. I don't expect interest rates to really start dropping down for any time in the near future. I know that they are a different market than what the Fed puts out, but again, they're a competing bond for investors versus, say, like the Treasuries. And if the target rate continues to go up, it's going to drag everything else from credit cards and revolving charges, everything along with it. Now, we also have to fight energy costs this winter. If we don't have a severe winter, that might be helpful. That may bring energy prices down. But if we have a hard winter, that may actually cause inflation to spike as well, because again, it's supply and demand on natural gas and propane and everything else to go with it. So it's up to you. We are making a dent, I think, in inflation, but we still have a long road to hoe. So stay tuned for next week's episode. And as we narrow into December, we're going to find out exactly whether or not we hit 7.5% or perhaps 8% on a 30-year mortgage. We appreciate you watching. Have a good, safe weekend.